Okay, no, this was just a hearing on an annexation. Now we will start the Urbana City Council meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Here.
Mr. Bowersox?
Here.
Ms. Shenoweth? Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Smythe? Ms. Stevenson?
Present.
Mayor Pressing.
Here. First item is approval of the minutes of December 3rd.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Ms. Barnes. Any additions or corrections? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Are there any additions to the agenda? Okay, we'll move on to petitions and communications. Sir, you would like to speak? I have, first I have Linda Lorenz. She presented one, and then you can be after her. The microphone is the little black mouse in front of you.
Do you want me to? I live at 409 West High.
Okay.
And I wanted to speak in support of the establishment of the Joseph Royer Art and Architectural District. And in fact, I was afraid that Ilona, who's worked so hard on it and whose idea it is, was not going to be here, and she literally just drove into town. I think it's a great idea. I've lived here all my life, and I never realized that some of the great buildings in downtown and around were all designed by somebody locally. So I think it's a good education effort, and it's a good economic notion, and it's going to all happen when we celebrate our 175th anniversary. So I hope you'll vote yes on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Nick Arend. Please say your name and address.
Yeah, Nick Arend. It's A-R-E-N-D. I'm at 804 South McCullough Street. And basically, I just wanted to say a few words. A couple of months ago, there was discussion here about the sanitary sewer ordinance for the illegal connections and for the repairs. And I think at that meeting, there were a couple of different homeowners that talked at that time. We're the last homeowner that if the one policy is made retroactive would be applied to us, and we're obviously in support of that. But the biggest reason why I really wanted to stop by this evening was to thank Charlie for his responsiveness and all the help that he has given us, and just how responsive he's been to us. And then also back when we did the work back earlier this year, and then also more recently, we just had just a great relationship with Brad Bennett, and especially Norm Reinbold with the Public Works Division. And Norm, especially on site, did a great job of making sure that things got done, but also did it in a very relaxed manner, I guess, that sort of thing. So I don't really have a whole lot of detailed comments on that other than that, unless someone has a question, that sort of thing. But I just wanted to at least stop by and say a word of thanks for that.
Well, thank you. We're always happy to hear our staff does a good job.
Yeah, great.
Right, and I remember from the other two homeowners and from the video I watched a couple of months ago, I know from some of the things that were written up, I know that our situation was a bit more extensive than what had been reported earlier, that sort of thing. And so having folks that help out and to go to and stuff has been a real big help for us. So thank you
very much. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the Urbana City Council? Okay, let's move on.
Mayor?
Oh, Dennis Roberts.
Yeah, is it appropriate that I make a comment?
Sure.
This pertains to communications that I received from Alice Novak, who is the head of the Historic Preservation Commission here in our city, and also a call that I made to the State Agency for Historic Preservation, and which was returned to me today. And it really has concern with something that is in process, and I understand there have been new developments since then. As you remember, or if you might have noticed, I think it was today's paper, the December 17th paper, at the bottom there's a pretty large article about plans to move the barn, the Mumford barn. And we did hear information concerning the barn moving, and the City Council has passed or allowed a moving permit for this structure to be moved to this, from one location on the university property to another. It was a concern, I guess I asked a question of Mr. Melvin Scrivala concerning moving this historic barn and also the Mumford House plans, because the Mumford House is also going to be eventually moved to the location that the barn is going to be heading to. And he said that it was not really the city's purveyance to consider or educate on that motion, on the moving of the barn or the house, since it was all contained on city property. And I did tell him that I had heard that members of the Historic Preservation Commission had a concern that if you move a house off of its original foundation, it does affect the value of the property historically. Anyways, it sounded like there was nothing in particular that the city was able to discuss with the university, if it was all indeed the university's control to take care of its own properties. But I've heard a little bit differently. And as a matter of fact, maybe we've all received a copy of a letter from the Illinois State Historic Preservation Agency, signed by William Weaver, who is a state historic preservation officer. And basically, the facsimile that was sent to us indicates that the university is actually acting contrary to the Illinois State Agency Historic Resource Provision Act 20 ILCS 3420, and that the moving of the barn at this point, therefore, is on hold. That says, because of these actions, it is now the duty of the university, pursuant to Section 4A of the Act just mentioned, to hold a public hearing to seek input on this project as it relates to the historic properties and possible mitigation of the demolition undertaken by the university. This meeting shall take place within 60 days of receipt of this letter in Champaign County at a time and place mutually agreed upon or to by the agency and the university. And until the meeting takes place and we have time to consider the comments received, no work may be undertaken to the Mumford Barn nor any other structures which may remain within the project area. So I've got a question, I guess, for Robert Myers. My understanding is that we just got an email from Public Works saying that the barn moving is on hold. Have you heard news concerning this project?
After this body reviewed the permit application and authorized issuance, we got this additional information, correspondence from one state agency saying that the moving of the barn, they still need to do something in order to meet the state law before they can comply. And so the Public Works Department has put a hold on the permit, and we expect that they should be able to go through the process. The university should be able to go through the process and meet the requirements, and then once they've done that, they can obtain their permit and move if that's what they choose to do at the end of that period.
I guess my concern was whether the city was also somehow involved in an act that was contrary to a state statute.
Well, the city has this under advisement right now, so
All right.
all these things are very complicated, right?
I'm sure they are.
So we are discussing it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? Petitions and communications? All right. Is there any old business? I don't believe there is. Yes, we did. They passed with flying colors. Okay. Reports of standing committees.
Okay.
Committee of the Whole?
Yeah.
That's you.
All right. As having been the chair of the Committee of the Whole, several motions and resolutions were forwarded to the City Council for consideration, and so I shall read through them. Item A, there's been a motion to approve the Civilian Police Review Board training outline, and for the Committee of the Whole, I move approval.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, seconded by Ms. Barnes. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Roberts.
Okay. Secondly, a resolution number 2007-12-029R, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a certificate of consistency for the Housing Authority of Champaign County 5-year plan for the fiscal year 2005 to 2009 and the annual plan for fiscal year 2008. And for the committee, I so move adoption.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, seconded by Ms. Barnes. Did you want to say something, Libby Tyler?
Yes, there was a modification requested by the Housing Authority to the plan following the discussion at the committee meeting. They did request that we make a change, that they would, minor wording change in their plan, that they would in fact work to redevelop Lakeside Terrace rather than the may decide to. And this was at their request pursuant to that discussion, so the resolution has been modified to show that.
Okay.
Are there any questions or any comments? Mr. Smythe.
Well, I appreciate the efforts that were made to answer the many questions I asked. I'm still not very happy with the direction of things, and and based on comments that Danielle made, it's not clear to me how the Housing Authority could do the development on its own. That's not been made clear to me. They can promise the moon. They've been promising the moon, and I don't see any results. So I will oppose the resolution.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Roberts.
Yeah. Didn't the Housing Authority indicate that they could find partners, that they would be able to find partners for that project if it befell back to them if the other developer no longer was interested, as I recall?
Anyone else?
That's what they indicated to us.
Okay.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, I believe the motion carries. Mr. Roberts.
Okay. Item number C, resolution number 2007-12-030R, a resolution establishing the Joseph W. Royer Arts and Architecture District.
Second.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
You're very welcome.
Did you make the motion?
I make a motion that we adopt it, yes.
Okay, it was seconded before it was made, but that's okay. All right.
I was just excited about it.
Okay, motion by Mr. Roberts, seconded by Ms. Barnes. All those in favor, please signify by... Oh, there's some discussion. Mr. Smythe.
I just think we owe the people, again, who did all the work, Dennis and Alona especially, for bringing this to our attention and putting it all together. So it's a real nice piece. So thank you very much.
And now let's have fun. And now let's have fun.
Okay, first we're going to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay,
Mr.
good.
Roberts.
Number D, ordinance number 2007-12-134, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with the County of Champaign concerning the funding for the construction of Windsor Road. This is Windsor Road from High Cross Road, that's Illinois 130, to Philo Road. And for the committee, I so move that we adopt it. I think Ms. Stevenson made a second.
Okay, Mr. Roberts made the motion, seconded by Ms. Stevenson. Any discussion? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Shenoweth? Yes. Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Mr. Roberts.
All right. Next, we have an ordinance number 2007-12-135, an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with the County of Champaign and Somer Township concerning the funding for the engineering and construction of the replacement of bridge structure number 010-3168 on Lincoln Avenue near Wilbur Road. For the committee, I so move that we adopt it.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, seconded by Mr. Smythe. Any discussion? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe? Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Motion carried. Mr. Roberts.
Okay. Now we come to ordinance number 2007-12-136, an ordinance authorizing the execution of the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, Phase 2, Stormwater Notice of Intent. For the committee, I so move we adopt it.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, seconded by Mr. Smythe. Any discussion? Ms. Chenoweth.
Yeah, just a comment on this. I think that as we move forward with this concept of sustainable Urbana, and if, as I have argued, that concept should be driven by goals and plans to meet those goals. I think in addition, when I look through the documentation for this, it's clear that we're focused on compliance. And I think that we could go beyond that to actually have a sense, perhaps Public Works has a sense, but I as council don't have a sense of what kinds of discharges we're currently experiencing to the Boneyard and other waterways in the community, and also and to have specific goals for decreasing those and to really measure those goals. So it seemed like there were a lot of educational components, and over time there's some measurement components and fines, but I guess I wanted to put it out there that this piece is part of a bigger picture of us really looking at what the current state of our waterways is, which is, generally speaking, in a poor state compared to, my home state of Florida or something like that. It's because of the industrial, agricultural industry in the community, and we should be setting goals for the kind of cleanliness of the water and then being able to test and achieve those goals. So I see this as meeting certain standards, but I really think our local standards should be higher than the state and federal standards are asking us to be.
Anyone want to comment?
I would.
Mr. Roberts.
Actually, that's a good point. It could be that in the near future, if we met in a caucus session, we could reevaluate our city council goals, for the next year. I guess we'd probably be doing that in the early spring anyway. But there's certain things that have been coming up, and certainly that would be a great one to add to it.
Gail Jamison.
I would comment that the primary focus of the first 5 years of this is, in addition to the education, has been on the sediment issues. Thus, we've passed the ordinances for erosion control and sediment control, and it gives us a mechanism for causing some things to happen that we've had to ask for and generally have gotten for the most part in the past. So we focused on sediment. That's the first thing. The next phases would be on post-construction control, which would get you some more benefit. There have not, to this date, been any actual pollutant limits set or TMDLs set for this particular discharge, but we expect those will come in the future, and we're going to strive to get to the point where we can meet those. Encouraging rain gardens and things like that in our developments to help do some treatment, pre-treatment of storm sewer before it discharges to the streams.
Ms. Chenoweth.
Do we currently measure pollutants in Urbana waterways?
We do not. We have not been required to by the Act, and we do not do that right now.
Yeah,
other than visibly looking to make sure there's sediment levels are kept to a minimum.
Yeah, and I guess that's the piece I'm pointing to, is I think, certainly some of the controls have been beefed up, but I think that we don't really even have a picture of existing conditions when it comes to our own local waterways. We respond to big emergencies like, the ammonia spill from the university. That was clearly a problem, but we don't really have a current picture of existing conditions. We just know that we can't swim in any of the water. So, we know that, but no one swims in Crystal Lake. And I think that it's time for us to take the blinders off and for us to really get a sense of, why is it that we can't swim in Crystal Lake? Well, it's not just the geese, it's atrazine. And it's the fact that you have a chemical in Crystal Lake Park that is mutagenic to frogs and other animals. And that's in Crystal Lake. And, the university does some of this testing, and we have some documentation of what our waterways look like, and it's not a pretty picture. So I think that as we move forward with Brandon's proposal for sustainable Urbana, we have to be looking at waterways. We have to start doing tests, and we have to set goals for ourselves locally, because we can't wait for the state to do it. They're just, honestly, the industrial agricultural interests in this state will keep certain kinds of testing and prohibitions from occurring, and so we have to take steps on a local level if we want to protect ourselves.
Well, the two places that I know are measured would be the sanitary district and the saline, and any leachate from our landfill, our closed landfill. But I think we should be well aware of what's in our water around here. Any other comments? Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes?
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe? Ms. Stevenson?
Okay, that motion carries. Mr. Roberts.
Okay, that gives us time now to look at ordinance number 2007-12-137, an ordinance amending Schedule J of Section 23-183 of the Urbana Local Traffic Code, prohibiting parking at all times on certain streets, specifically Guardian Drive and Butzow Drive. For the committee, I move approval.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, second by Ms. Barnes. Are there any comments? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes?
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes?
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe? Ms. Stevenson?
That motion carries. Mr. Roberts.
Okay, I suppose I could do these two in omnibus fashion, the next two, having both to do with lateral sewers, maintenance, and...
Mr. Roberts, I think we have a different number on those. Is that correct? Gail Jamison has the
Yes, that's...
updated.
Do we have an update on these?
Basically, what we did is we combined these two into one ordinance.
Okay.
So we will only be considering one ordinance which will establish the policy and will authorize the mayor to execute it.
So are we going to go with...
So that would be 138,
138. the
All right.
first one, yes.
So we've got it combined. So 139 is now integrated into ordinance number 138. All the provisions, everything we've read is now a part of the
So it's all
number
one
H.
ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And I wasn't quite sure. Yes. Well,
Can you answer some questions for me?
I will attempt to.
Okay. I'm reading on recommended action on the council policy for the reimbursement, and then I'm reading council policy regarding sanitary repair. And I'm reading one is 50% and at 4,000, and one is 50% at 3,000. One's July 1st of 2008.
That's
And
correct.
I'm reading May 1st, 2007. I'm also wondering about the Eastern Avenue. We had 3 that came before us, 3 legal connections.
The 3 illegal connections are retroactive to May of '07, so that we cover those
Okay.
with this action. The actual repair of or the maintenance of the laterals is actually deferred until next year because we will be we need to budget for it, and we'll be adjusting the sewer benefit fee to account for that. So that's the reason it's moved out to that point in time, and we're doing it retroactive for those illegal connections so we can cover the 3 that we had.
I just didn't see on here on the retroactive, I didn't see the Eastern Avenue. It says the 2 illegal connections recently repaired. I know that the Eastern Avenue.
There's actually 3.
Okay, then I guess on here that needs to be added because it's not on here.
It is covered in the policy because the policy is retroactive to that date. So if
Okay, so it doesn't have.
It doesn't have to be in the memo, but it's in the policy that they're retroactive to that date.
Okay. Any other questions?
That's a good question.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Is, just because I did also flag that sense that one was retroactive and one was in the future, the illegal connection repairs, are there other repairs that were made in 2006 or 2007 that you know of, illegal connection repairs?
I don't recollect any prior to the 3 we had in 2007. Our televising program has just picked up on the illegal connections.
Okay, so we're not kind of making an arbitrary mark date that might exclude certain people, but there was a big gap, and this is just catching some people in the recent past.
This is just catching the most recent ones, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I hadn't made a motion yet. We're having discussion.
Okay.
Do we
I
have-
guess we should have the motion first, right? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. Let's see now. Is there a new language then, therefore, for this, or shall I just continue to read? All right.
I think they're just combined.
All right, then I'll just read it as combined. Under ordinance number 2007-12-138, an ordinance establishing a council policy regarding a reimbursement program for illegal connections of private sanitary sewer service laterals to the storm sewer system and repair of sanitary and storm sewer service laterals, and including an ordinance regarding approving a policy regarding illegal connections of private sanitary sewer service laterals to the storm sewer system and repairs to sanitary and storm sewer service laterals. I love this.
We want to know if you can say that faster.
I'd like to say it faster, but I think once was enough. Thank you for the exciting adventure of one of the most interesting sounding ordinances we've passed in a long time, probably.
That didn't come out illegal, by the way.
Thank you. I would hate to know what to say would come from the future if we do this again. But anyways, for the committee of the whole, I move approval.
Motion by Mr. Roberts, seconded by Mr. Smythe. Any discussion? Ms. Stevenson?
No, go ahead, Brandon.
Mr. Bowers?
I just had one quick comment for Gail and staff that I know the holidays are coming up, and for some people, they've been waiting a long time to even see if we're going to do reimbursements and get the policy in place. So now that it is, I just urge you to process their paperwork quickly, and if there's any way, if these people get in their paperwork so that we can reimburse their expenses before the holidays, I'm sure the homeowners would appreciate it.
Brad and Norm will review any of the bills they have for the work, and as quickly as possible, and we'll process as quick as we can.
Thank you very much.
Heather Stevenson?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
I can ask.
Danielle Chenoweth?
I just have a quick question for the public. If someone is purchasing a house, how do they check to see if that house has an illegal sewer connection? Is there any way they could go about that? Does the city have like a list of known problems and they could check with that list, or can an inspector do that?
When we find illegal connections, we put the person on notice right away, because those illegal connections are our liability until they're fixed. We can't allow them to happen, so we either have to have them disconnected or repaired. So there's no list sitting there of these waiting to be fixed. And the only way a homeowner might be able to ascertain that is in doing their due diligence in purchasing a home. They could have it, one of the local services televise it, see where it discharges. We could dye test it and see if it shows up in a storm sewer, but that's not normally the practice. We don't normally do that unless a homeowner would request us to come out and do it.
Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes?
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
That completes the report of the committee.
Okay, thank you. Any reports of special committees? I don't think we have any. Reports of officers? Okay, under new business, we have appointments. I'm recommending appointments to the Civilian Police Review Board. We really did a very thorough interview process, and I want to thank Robert Lewis and Brandon Bowersox for helping on the council. And we also had Lieutenant Cobb, Vasilia Clark, Todd Rent, and at some point, we had Ron O'Neill. And we had excellent people apply for this, but we only had 7 spots, and we think we've really got a very well-balanced board. So I would hope that somebody would make a motion to approve these.
I would make a motion to approve the nominees to the Civilian Police Review Board.
Okay, motion by Mr. Roberts, seconded by Mr. Smythe. Any discussion? Mr. Roberts.
I just got an email from Scotty Dossett, who I'll just summarize it. He's interested in serving on the review board. He's interested in fairness in the community, non-biased overview, which would improve relationships in the city and benefit both the citizens and the police.
Mr. Bowersox.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment. I sat in on some of the interviews and had a chance to participate. It was really good to see our staff, as well as the mayor, asking really tough questions. There were, as the mayor said, great candidates, and it was a tough decision, but we really, I think, did a good job asking a lot of tough questions and getting a group of people that will come without any bias and with the ability to be good listeners and good communicators and be good at a lot of other things too. There's some people with experience as counselors, some people with experience dealing with a variety of tough situations in social service agencies and other places, and it's a really good group of folks. So I want to especially thank Vasilia and Todd and Ron for all their work. I saw they had worked incredibly hard to try to plan out how this would work, plan training, and ask these folks tough questions so that we had a group of people that really we can envision how they're going to work together and how they're going to work together well. So thank you to our staff.
Mr. Lewis.
Well, I've received a number of comments about the Police Review Board and the selection we presently have, and I think we have a good group to start. The questions I could not answer was the training, and hopefully we can shed some light on that shortly to let the public know what that's really going to be like.
Okay, because we did hand out an outline last at the Committee of the Whole.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next is ordinance number 2007-12-140, an ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of an annexation agreement for a 23.124 acre tract of land located north of Saline Court / for Champagne Asphalt LLC. And Robert Myers is here, our planner, to describe this.
Sure. Right, we have two related items on the agenda tonight. First is a proposed annexation agreement, and then the second is a subdivision, a one-lot subdivision. And again, the annexation agreement first would be between the City of Urbana and Champagne Asphalt and for a 23-plus acre tract located north end of Saline Court. Just to give you the kind of the big picture, Champagne Asphalt has plans to consolidate 3 operations that they have currently located elsewhere. And they plan on moving their asphalt production facilities and having the new site open for business in the spring of 2008. Those are their plans. To give you a sense, if I could have the Elmo, please. I think these will be helpful with our discussion. Shoot. Would you mind to turn down the lights? Thank you. Yeah, not too helpful if that's what you see, right? Okay. No. What's that? Baseline? You can only choose one or the other. All right, let me go ahead and proceed. I think on the television it does show up better. If you need to look at that screen instead, it's up to you, obviously. No, it's just one or the other. I think it's okay. This property is located in the far northwest corner of the city, north of I-74 and off of North Lincoln Avenue Extended. And the access would be by from Saline Court. Lincoln Avenue currently stops about here, the Lincoln Avenue Extended. Saline Court comes off to the west and then currently stops here. The property we're talking about is just north of that, about 300 feet. So in order to develop this property, the applicants would need to extend Saline Court about 300 feet north. And we're talking about a 23-plus acre tract. You'll notice that geographically it's somewhat isolated in the fact that it has the railroad tracks over here to the west. It has a tributary of the Saline Branch here. Olympian Drive is going to be located to the north across here, but and where it crosses, Lincoln, both Lincoln Avenue Extended and Olympian Drive are going to be limited access roadways. So Olympian Drive, for instance, is intended to allow transportation or vehicles to travel over longer distances. So it's not going to have driveways coming onto it. It's going to have streets only periodically. And actually at this point, where it crosses the railroad tracks, it's going to have to be elevated. So there's not going to be able to have direct access to Olympian Drive right at that point. So again, it is a somewhat isolated parcel. Now this comes into play when we talk about the waivers that they're requesting in terms of the subdivision code, but I want to let you know that up front. I should note here that again, here's the property here, and the people that spoke at the public hearing, they live here at this farmhouse located right here. So the distance between the property line and the farmhouse is roughly about 1,200 feet. And then you'll notice from the site plan that's part of the annexation agreement that Champaign Asphalt proposes to locate their actual asphalt plant on this part of the property, which is about, best I can gauge, about 1,800 feet to 2,000 feet from the farmhouse itself. The other thing I should note is that as part of the site plan we'll take a look at, Champaign Asphalt will be installing a berm all across the eastern property line with landscaping located. The subject property, yeah, the new property. In terms of zoning, Saline Court is located here. This is in the city. It's zoned industrial. The property is in the county. It's zoned agricultural, as are the surrounding properties. And in terms of the comprehensive plan, future land use map for the comprehensive plan, you'll see heavy industrial. You should also note really that for Urbana, this is really the one area that we have set aside for heavy industrial. It's located in close proximity to the I-74 and the railroad tracks, and it's relatively isolated in terms of traffic. away from major neighborhoods and from other commercial areas. Although admittedly there are farm homes, a few farm homes along North Lincoln Avenue extended, and also the comprehensive plan shows that on the east side of Lincoln Avenue extended between there and Saline Branch, there is an opportunity for some low-density residential development as well. So the annexation agreement would do a couple of things. One, it would authorize bringing the property into the city. It would agree that the property would be rezoned from county agricultural to city industrial, and also that a special use permit would be issued for use of the property for asphalt plant purposes. You'll notice in your packet there is an illustration showing where the activity on the property would take place. You'll notice that Saline Court would come from the south, the railroad tracks over here. This is where the asphalt plant would be located. This is where their offices would be located, and this is where their shop service would be located. And then you'll see on the site plan this berm located along the eastern property line. So two things the project has going for it here. One is that the berm is what people from the east would be seeing from Lincoln Avenue extended. And then second, beyond that berm, there's going to be the shop and offices that will help also, I think, provide a little bit of a buffer from the asphalt plant to the west. That would be more closer to the rail line. In terms of the proposed zoning designation, industrial zoning would be consistent with the 2005 comprehensive plan, future land use map that's provided in your packet. In terms of the rezoning criteria, you'll see a zoning analysis in your memo, what we call the LaSalle National Bank criteria, which is the standard criteria that we use. And through city staff's analysis, we find that it does meet the criteria for rezoning. And then at the Plan Commission meeting, the Plan Commission reviewed the annexation agreement and the rezoning as required by state law, and they recommended to this body that the City Council approve the annexation agreement and the rezoning as presented. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Ms. Chenoweth.
Thanks for your presentation. Sure. I just had one question. The site map helps a lot, and also just the discussion of trying to figure out what will be where. Is there a reason why the proposed berm does not go all the way to the south end of the property? It seems like actually the section that would be Mulsacote related activity only has a berm on a portion of to the east of a portion of that. So I'm wondering why it doesn't extend all the way to the southern.
I'm not aware of a technical reason why it cannot extend. I think the owner, if the owner is here tonight, you can discuss with them about extending that if you feel like that would be beneficial. My understanding from the Plan Commission meeting is that the site will have plenty of dirt in order that they will need to move around, and so that they would have plenty of dirt on site in order to build this berm. So I don't know of a technical reason why it couldn't happen, and the owner could probably speak to more about that.
Okay. That's really my only question, so I'd be interested in hearing from the owner on that topic.
I'm not sure I have the right.
Yes.
Again, my name's Joe Lamb with Champagne Asphalt Company in Urbana. And I'm not sure about this, but Robert might be able to help me. When we did the plat for the entire ground, wasn't there provision for a roadway for access from the east to come up from there?
It would come about right in here.
Okay. That was the only reason I knew. So I don't know, we could extend it if there wasn't any visual concerns or anything like that. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I think just on that topic, on this topic, first of all, I'm happy to see Champaign Asphalt consolidate in Urbana, and certainly appreciate that. And I also particularly, I think the school districts will appreciate the connection to the Urbana school. No, it's, the annexation involves an agreement to disconnect and become part of the Urbana school district. That's my understanding from the reading.
The Metro Zone?
Well, it would, as part of the annexation agreement, the property owner would agree to petition to be de-annexed from one and join the other, but it's really out of their hands in terms of whether or not it will happen, but they've agreed to apply.
Who makes the final decision?
Well, I don't know if it's the school board itself or whether it's a, or whether it's the state.
Okay. Well, we know how that'll end if it's the school board, but at any rate, I did want to thank you for choosing this location, and also for, for agreeing to speak to concerned property owners. I think with some things like lights being turned in the wrong location, it's simply a conversation that needs to happen.
Right.
Once that conversation happens, then we can address it. And I think in the case of the berm, I think extending it to the south, especially looking at this site plan, would make a lot of sense to the southern corner. And if you're already moving dirt around, perhaps you'd be amenable to that.
That design was basically for the neighbors of the Squire Farm, and I appreciate everything you said, because this endeavor, this whole search has gone on since 2002, when the city of Champaign first came to us with the expansion of the Church of the Living God. And it was their intent, obviously, to retain us. And I just want to say that after a long search of the entire surrounding county, we found this to be the best site. It was exhausting.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense to be on the railroad, and
right,
we
there's
appreciate
just so
you
much
choosing
to it, and we're kind
Urbana.
of tucked away. And, so, yeah, we will work to make that as aesthetically pleasing as we possibly can.
Okay.
I should probably add one thing, just to be explicit. The annexation agreement, what the petitioner is proposing is to provide the screening all along the east property line in lieu of screening that would otherwise be needed along Saline Court. And the reason is because that's the logical place where the public is going to see this site would be from the east, from Lincoln Avenue extended. The general public is not going to be going down to the very end of Saline Court, really just the users of this property. So rather than the little bit of screening that would otherwise be required on Saline Court, they're asking for, in lieu of that, to provide all of the entire screening along the eastern property line with the berm and the vegetation.
Any other comments? Mr. Roberts.
Is part of the, we don't have detailed site development plans. Are you going to be required to have a shallow catch basin for materials that may spill from your processing?
At all of our facilities, referring to the hot mix plant itself, we all have self-contained areas as designed by OSHA and the Illinois EPA. In fact, if you look at our facility at Oak Street off Bradley and 4th, and as you move north on Oak Street, you can see there's concrete barriers around the areas that have materials that are of hazardous nature.
Okay, so there would be a containment.
At all locations.
And then it's, you said there were concrete barriers. Does that also mean there's a concrete floor to this basin? Or
well, there's always it's funny, we've been trying to determine what we have at the Oak Street site since 1946, and I think in some places there's 14 feet of stone.
I see.
And so it's built up as the cold feed bins, and so there will at a minimum be a aggregate base course with the hope of having obviously we don't like to put concrete down as much as we do asphalt, so if it was a surface it would probably be asphalt surface, but yeah, that would be nice if we could.
Okay.
Okay, we ready to vote? Yes, go ahead.
I would make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2007-12-140.
Motion by Ms. Stevenson, second by Mr. Lewis. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion on the site plan to require that the berm extend to the southern property line, which I believe is with this motion because it's at least attached to the annexation agreement memo. If it's inappropriate on this motion but belongs on the second, I can change that. But I would make the motion that the berm and landscaping be required to extend to the southern property line.
Second.
Okay, this is an amendment to the motion. We'll vote on the amendment. The amendment is by Ms. Chenoweth and second by Ms. Barnes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, let's vote on the amended motion. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe? Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Finally, we have ordinance number 2007-12-141, an ordinance approving a combined preliminary final subdivision plat for Squire subdivision number 1, and it's plan case number 2057-S-07. Robert Myers, would you
Okay.
like to comment on that?
Sorry, kind of hiding behind this Elmo here. It's kind of in the way. Obviously, this is a related case. This is a combined preliminary final plat of one lot. It's the same property that we were just discussing. The applicants are Janet Charlo, Shirley Squire, Helen Squire, and Robert E. Carlson. Collectively, they're the owners of what's called Squire Farm, and they're applying for approval of a combined preliminary final subdivision plat. The property is a little over 23 acres. Again, it's located north of Saline Court in the extreme northwest corner of the city limits. Champagne Asphalt is under contract to purchase this property, and they have plans, again, to consolidate their operations and move it to the site. At their December 6th, 2007 meeting, the Urbana Plan Commission approved what's known as the General Area Plan, which I'll show you just momentarily, and recommended that the City Council approve the plat with the requested waivers of the subdivision code. And the applicants are requesting two waivers, one to exceed the maximum length of a cul-de-sac, and then second to exceed the design numbers for the number of vehicles a day that would be served by a cul-de-sac. The general area plan, if I can have the Elmo, please. The general area plan is a document that the subdivision code, make sure I got this going the right direction. Yeah. General area plan is a document that the subdivision code requires so that when land holdings, large land holdings are being developed in a piecemeal basis, that the improvements don't turn out to be piecemeal, and that so we make sure that it's well thought out. So here, a portion of the Squire Farm is being subdivided, and with that, they've submitted a general area plan. Generally speaking, the property we're talking about is here. Lincoln Avenue extended, where you see the dashed lines, this is the location of where Lincoln Avenue will be extended at some point. The location, the exact location is known, but I don't have a timetable when that would actually happen. Olympian Drive, we just spoke about just a few minutes ago, is to the north. Again, the railroad tracks here, and then there's a branch of the Saline, a tributary of the Saline Ditch that's located here. Lincoln Avenue stops here. Saline Court currently stops here, about 300 feet shy of the property. So the applicants we'll need to, as part of this plat, extend Saline Court by the fact that this operation is existing, and we know that it can generate about 400 trucks a day during the asphalt season. It's just de facto that it's going to exceed that 250 vehicles per day design limitation that we have for cul-de-sacs under our city subdivision code. There was a traffic impact analysis done for Saline Court in 2000. That was done when the waste transfer station was located here. And based on our projections, we believe at full build-out, you have the numbers in your memo in terms of how many vehicles a day that we believe will be generated at full build-out. Now, just in terms of a fact check, I'll make sure I have this right here. We did an actual traffic count. It was a one-day count. Apologize, I lost my place here. But we did an actual traffic count on that, on Saline Court. Page 5, thank you. Sorry about that. Well, I'm sorry, but the traffic count that we performed, admittedly, it was only one day, but it'll give you a general sense of the total number of vehicles that it's currently experiencing. My recollection was about 250, 280 vehicles per day. So what we're projecting at full build-out, you're talking about 1,900 vehicles a day. That's a projection, just a gross projection, but the actual count is actually much lower than that currently. That's the way it stands. It's also important to note that, again, looking at the Elmo, they're only going to have one point of access. Now, normally 24-acre tract with one point of access may not be sufficient to serve the property. But here we're talking about one large tract, one large user that's going to be extensive in nature rather than intensive. And so, but we did ask that the general area plan show a future roadway extension to the property line. And so if, when this happens, as we expect it would at some point, they would have a second point of access. But until that time, city staff, in our own analysis, we feel like that Champaign Asphalt can be served adequately by emergency services and by public services. So we feel that even if that second point for some reason should not materialize, or in the meantime, that the site can be adequately served. On pages 4 and 5 of your memo, we discussed the consideration of the two waivers that they've requested and the waiver criteria and analysis. And our findings are that the requested waivers, this plat would meet, does have special conditions and circumstances that warrant granting of the waivers. So just in summary, the Plan Commission reviewed this proposed plat. The actual plat itself, of which this is a copy you have in your packet. The Plan Commission reviewed this plat at their December 6th meeting and recommended approval of the plat after approving the general area plan, and found that the proposed plat was in conformance with their approved general area plan. So the Plan Commission is recommending approval with two waivers and one condition, and the condition would be that the plat would not be filed until after the right-of-way is granted for the extension of Saline Court, and that's important to make sure that we don't create a landlocked parcel. So first, the extension of Saline Court right-of-way, and then we'll file the plat. So thank you.
Okay, any questions? Is there a motion?
Oh, I had a question.
You have a question, Mr. Roberts?
What's the width of the road, what's it called?
Saline Court?
Saline Court Road that ends in a cul-de-sac?
60 feet right-of-way. 66 feet right-of-way. And then the road itself appears to be 34 feet wide.
Oh, so that's pretty wide road. Okay.
Ms. Barnes?
What are your hours of operation?
Well, it varies. Obviously, more and more for safety and relief to the traveling public. The night work is being spec'd. If you remember last year, I-74 was kind of a end of summer, and those are rare circumstances. I think Neal Street this summer was done by another company the same way. But basically, the plant generally would start between 5:30 and 6 in the morning and is generally off the road by 4 to 5 in the evening. And again, it's a seasonal business. The plant generally operates from about April 15th to about Thanksgiving.
Okay. Thank you.
Stevenson?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 2007-12-141.
Motion by Ms. Stevenson, seconded by Ms. Chenoweth. Any further discussion? Ms. Chenoweth?
I just have a comment about the noticing issue that the Barron's family brought up. And I think that perhaps one way to address this is, because so many different neighborhoods are so different, in some cases, 250 feet covers quite a bit. Obviously, in your neck of the woods, 250 feet doesn't mean a whole lot. Is that most of Urbana is covered through neighborhood associations, and so they play a really important role in terms of communications, in addition to the things that Mr. Myers discussed, the regular noticing that we do. And so if there was a way and having been on council for 6 years, I've seen a lot of activity in this area, and I've seen a lot of folks, a number of your neighbors come and speak before council about changes in this area. So I think that by perhaps establishing an association with a president who has email access and has direct connection with the staff can then send out email notices, and that would be an additional notification that you could then pass around amongst the organization, and that way be better informed earlier in the process of this. This is a suggestion.
Any other questions? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Bowersox?
Yes.
Ms. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes?
Okay, that motion carries. There's no further business, so we'll see